Good evening and welcome to Fired Up on YouTube. We are broadcasting from the gun store here in Las Vegas. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin, and we are on the radio on News Talk 720 KDWN. Normally, tonight they're running a repeat show over there because on Saturday night, we all need to be at the NRA dinner, which is at Sunset Station. If you are listening to this show on YouTube, we're actually here and this is live. The people on radio are getting a repeat show tonight. Anyway, this show is all about guns, politics, and related self-defense issues. What we are trying to do is educate the public, our listeners, mostly gun owners, about the rules of the road, carrying a firearm, and up-to-date on gun laws and threats to their Second Amendment rights. We do encourage questions and comments. They can be mailed in, emailed or texted to bob@firedupmail.com. If it's a question appropriate for a firearms instructor, such as Maggie, or an attorney, such as Alan, we will forward it to those appropriate people. And we will answer on the air questions that are commonly asked, where we have a bunch of people inquiring about the same thing. We always have an attorney on board to address the legal issues involved in self-defense and gun laws. And tonight it's one of my regular attorney guests, Alan Butel, criminal defense attorney here in Las Vegas, and a firearms instructor or a police officer here to answer questions about training and issues. And tonight it's well-renowned, world-renowned firearms instructor, CCW Maggie.
Thanks for having me.
Maggie, welcome to the show again. The common thread question that we got this week was 6 or 7 people, because we were addressing an issue the last week or two about carrying in gun-free zones. What do you do when you're entering a gun-free zone, or need to enter a gun-free zone, or want to enter a gun-free zone, and you see a sign that says, no guns allowed in this parking lot, this liquor store, this whatever it is? And there's a couple of different answers to that. The first one is, if it's a government gun-free zone, courts, jails, city hall in your town, whatever it may be, if it's a government operation and it says no guns, don't go in there with your gun. You got to leave it in the car where it can be stolen or wherever you got to do. But right now we're having a lot of jurisdictions, if they find your gun, making examples out of you, and you're going to be arrested and be in jail and so forth. In the civilian world, non-government gun-free zones are different. Private gun-free zones, there's several answers. The first is, obviously, it would be smarter for you as a gun owner and gun rights individual not to shop there. It's not enough not to shop. You should do a little more. Maggie, you want to get into that?
Well, sure. I mean, if there's a place that is infringing upon your rights to keep and bear arms in that place, you can reserve the right to shop somewhere else. Gun-free zones are basically letting the criminals know that, law-abiding citizens are not going to enter this property with their firearms because we're law-abiding citizens, so you reserve the right to not go there. And that's, you can just, they even have little cards that you can print out on handgunlaw.us, where you can print them out and it says, I reserve the right not to shop here. I'm going to take my guns and my money and go to your competitors who don't have signs that say no guns allowed.
And where you want to get merchants like that, restaurants and things, is you want to hit them in the wallet. All they're interested in is customers. They're not interested in gun safety. They probably wouldn't know the Second Amendment if it fell over them. So you go on their website, you get the national manager, if it's a national chain, and send them a nice letter that says you can't shop there because you can't protect your family if you go into his place of business. As much as you love the steaks at wherever the restaurant is, tell them something good about their store. And tell them that, unfortunately, you can't shop there because he's putting your family's life at risk. Be nice. Don't call him a communist. That's not going to help. Be the guy who is looking to protect his family and be reasonable in your requests, and send it to their Facebook page or wherever, where you're going to get a reaction. No legal problem with that. correct?
No, no, no.
Don't threaten them, and call them communists. Or the other issue is that's not available in government gun-free zones is you carry there anyway. And that becomes a more complex problem depending on the jurisdiction. Commonly, they're like Nevada, where if you enter, all that's going to happen, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, is they're going to, if they see your gun, they're going to ask you to check the gun in with security or go put it in your car or leave the store. You're not actually committing a crime unless you say, no, I'm going to carry my gun here anyway.
Right. I agree totally. You said it absolutely correctly.
If they ask you to leave for any reason, you're gone.
You're just courteously leave. You can tell them that you'll return someday when they change your policy. Until then, you'll not be a customer. That's all.
Always in these cases, tell them they're losing customers. That's what they care about.
My observations are that people who carry concealed generally aren't going to have that problem. It's the folks who like to do the open carry.
Yeah.
They're going to create the uncomfortable situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I also find that people who are concealed weapons permittees are usually courteous, law-abiding, nice people who will simply follow that rule.
They generally do what they're told. We're going to have a whole new class of people here very shortly. There's a story later on in the outline about Regal Theaters, who, because of shootings at their theaters, have decided to search purses and backpacks. And there's another problem there we'll get into just momentarily. Anyway, we're only on the internet tonight, so this is where I normally explain. If you're listening on the radio, we have a little bit longer show on the internet, but you're all on the internet watching this, so that's cool. We talk about defensive use of firearms every week. That's really the whole point of this show. 2 points: to keep you up to date on gun laws and to offer some insight into shooting incidents and what happened and why and how to correct it. That's why Maggie's here from the trainer standpoint. Alan is here from the defense attorney standpoint. These are all real cases, and in all cases I verify, so I get them from several sources to make sure that it's real. This was carried by KWTX TV News in Waco, Texas, which we've all heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Just outside of there in Hewitt, a homeowner and a former U.S. Marine thwarted an attempted home invasion Friday morning when he fired his weapon through the front door at two men trying to break into his home. Obviously, there's a question there. Anyway, the intended victim said he was acting to protect his wife and two children. The youngest child is 7 weeks old, who were asleep inside the home. The resident went to the front door with his weapon in hand after he was awakened by somebody knocking at the door at 1:45 a.m. A good time to take your gun with you to the door.
Great.
When he looked through the peephole, he saw a man standing at the door, and against his better judgment, he opened the door just a crack. As he did that, a second man ran around from the corner of the house toward the door with a gun in his hand. The intended victim slammed the door right then, and as he knew the guy was running toward the door, he fired 6 times through the door. There'll be a discussion on that too. After the initial confrontation, he retreated to his bedroom, rearmed himself, reloaded actually, while his wife called 911. Investigators do not believe anyone was hit by the gunfire. The would-be intruders ran from the house in unknown directions. Officers are trying to identify the suspects. The resident said, "If I hadn't been armed, I'd probably be dead," which is very likely true. You have a guy with faking the door knock and another guy charging at your door. He's certainly right in that statement. It's almost always a bad idea to fire through a closed door at someone on the other side. And I say that recognizing there's always an exception to the rule. We don't know what was in the background on the other side of the door. Might have been 10 miles of open dirt. It might have been a wall. So no one was actually in the fire zone when he fired through the door. It's his house. Probably knew that. given the timing and what the background was in his neighborhood, it appears to have been a reasonable choice. He didn't hit anybody, and apparently including the two guys.
Right.
No blood was found anywhere.
Right, definitely. Well, I don't know what kind of ammunition he was using, but one would hope that he was using defense ammunition. So if it was defense ammunition, projectile's not going to go too far. You know, if we're looking at FMJ, TMJ, or solid lead projectile, then that, of course, is going to overpenetrate. But with the defense ammunition, the hollow point, if you will, it's going to have the minimum penetration with maximum expansion. Whereas the FMJs, as you know, will
It's a heavy
actually
door to
overpenetrate.
break up going through the door somewhat.
Yeah, definitely.
And Counselor, obviously, we're not advocating firing through doors when you're not sure about what's on the other side, because I would assume had one of his bullets hit the neighbor, that's the end of him.
There's a lot to be said for not firing through a closed door. I mean, I appreciate the unique circumstances that this gentleman was in, and fortunately, it sounds like it worked out to his benefit.
It worked out, yes.
But generally speaking, I would not shoot through a closed door if at all possible.
Yeah, like I say, there was no description in any. I pulled up 3 different stories on the same shooting. There was no description of what was in front of the door besides the bad guys.
Is there any indication
we
whether
don't know.
a solid door, a screen door, what type?
It was a
of door?
solid door of some sort because you looked through a peephole first.
Yeah, entry level door.
So we'll assume it wasn't a steel door or he ricocheted onto
Hollow
himself.
door, you know.
It's we don't know. Normally a front door is a solid core wooden door normally, but
Normally, yeah.
yeah, this is Texas. We could be talking about a trailer door for all I know, but
Right.
it worked out. Probably not a good idea in general cases unless you know nothing else is out there because
Yeah.
you're throwing bullets in a random direction.
Well, it's very, very limited circumstances. There's a guy knocks at your door, you open it, the guy comes around the side with a gun. What if they're plainclothes detectives? I mean, for God's sakes, you know, the facts are so scant here, you really don't know.
Yeah.
Generally, you'd
through a
expect
closed
them to
door.
yell police or
Generally.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Police do that a lot, and where they make entry, and we've had lots of cases where they've made entry without any announcement and have lost lawsuits when people in the house shot at them, got arrested, and later on, the police department or the county ended up paying money
Sure.
because there was no warning.
In our
Usually
Texas,
it's when they have the wrong house. They're looking
Yeah.
for a drug dealer at a certain address and they have the numbers wrong or the informant was wrong about the house or whatever.
last comment on this case.
Okay.
Might it be a good example of a time for the homeowner to alert the intruders that he has a gun, he is armed, and make that announcement before he starts shooting?
That's the other thing we're missing here is a warning. And again, we're looking at the timing. Maybe he thought the guy was about to crash through the door because the guy was running at the door when he shut it. You don't know. But always, if there's opportunity, use a verbal warning. Most times you don't have to fire at all. They tend to run off. I have another story from Texas. I always like to do at least one Texas story just because it's Texas and I get a kick out of, because in Texas you can use deadly force under state laws for defense of objects and to recover property. If somebody's running off with your wallet or whatever, you can stop him with what, when I was a cop, we used to call long-range handcuffs, right? Bang, and the guy falls over.
That's a good one.
This is a liquor store clerk, San Antonio, Texas, a few days ago on the 15th. Opened fire Saturday evening as a man was running from the store. The police say that the thief came in about 6:30 p.m. to a store on Rittman Road. The male customer grabbed 2 bottles of liquor and then tried to leave the store. The female clerk grabbed a gun and fired 5 shots as he was going out the door. Investigating officers told the clerk that she wasn't sure if the shots hit the man as he ran from the store. He jumped into a red Toyota and drove away. The police are still looking for him. Obviously, firing at him was sufficient to get him to leave. I think it's because it's 2 bottles of liquor, then you can shoot them. But
I don't know. This is foreign to me. Honestly.
Yeah.
Conceptually and legally, it's just a foreign, weird thing. shooting at somebody over liquor. Come on.
over stuff.
Well,
I don't agree.
you see police officers in Texas getting sued for shooting at fleeing parties, but they're sued in federal court under federal law because they're acting as a peace officer, and they go after them in federal court. In state court, they don't. Their law allows, their case law allows, defensive objects or using deadly force to recover stolen property. So you're chasing a guy, you can shoot him as he's running. Most everywhere else in the entire world, the entire United States, you have to make your case that a human was endangered when you pull the trigger, and there was no other reasonable solution available to you. This is just Texas, and it's just in there because, you know, don't try this at home unless your home is in Texas. Otherwise, it won't work for you at all. Yeah. Let me see where we're going here. This is Philadelphia. This is back in regular parts of America. Reported security surveillance video captured. This is interesting. This is one of the big reasons you're here, because this is a big training issue, Maggie.
Yes.
Inside a convenience store in Philadelphia, it's a deli that makes sandwiches and this and that. A shot was fired after a suspect tried to rob a customer who was a CCW permit holder. The unknown suspect walked into Hoagie City on North 40th Street, if you're from Philadelphia, just after midnight. He grabbed a 22-year-old customer from behind and took him to the floor to rob him. On the video, he actually did kind of a good UFC takedown. He hit him in the back of the knee with his knee and spun him at the same time. Textbook rear takedown. The two got into a wrestling match. As they struggled, the customer's gun fell out and landed on the floor. In the video, it appears to be the gun and the holster. Looks like a black nylon clip-in holster.
Pocket, or okay.
Fell off his belt. They fought over the gun. The robber gained control. He then fired one shot. The bullet struck a ceiling vent and ricocheted over the bulletproof counter glass, according to the owner, who was standing behind the glass. The owner was on the phone with 911 and said it narrowly missed him. There's more to that story. But, the would-be robber then fled the store with the gun, and the victim actually ran out after him, even though the robber had the victim's gun.
Wow.
Which makes me question the IQ of the victim here, but you know, we never know. The robber escaped, described, as a man in his early 20s, 5'9" to 5'10". The detectives there believe they know who the suspect was based on the surveillance video, are in process of obtaining a warrant for his arrest. First comment is the CCW holder is extremely lucky he wasn't killed with his own gun. Carrying your gun securely is a big deal. Most defense cases, you are in a physical fight before you realize you need the gun. So, you know, you're robbed in a parking lot frequently, you're hit with something in the back of the head or in the front and knocked to the ground, then you realize there's fights on and you need to get your gun. And if your gun isn't carried securely, it's on the pavement where the bad guy who's still upright and you're flat on your back gets to have your gun.
Well, Bob,
snap holsters, solid belts.
You have to have a concealed carry holster that is comfortable, concealable. It also has to be secure. It has to secure your firearm. I'm a big fan of getting something that has a retention device on it, like the snap, like you said, something that you have to defeat. Also, if you're knocked to the ground, because not all assault and batteries are at 2 arms length. Hey, I'm going to come over there and beat you up. You know, they're usually
right there.
They're on you. You know, you're in that scuffle, and it looks to me like this situation went from him fighting for his life to fighting for the gun. That's kind of a scary situation, and again, the training you know, he got the guy away from him. This is when training comes in. How do you have that retention of your firearm? You know, maybe this youngster didn't take any training and he was just exercising his right to carry, and maybe he got a CCW. Of course, he's in Philadelphia, so you know he may have had that. And you know, you have to train with your firearm. If you don't use it, you lose it. It doesn't retain, and it's something you should always practice.
And for the attorney, and tactically, Alan's also an ex-trooper with the Kansas State Police, Highway Patrol, State Police, Highway Patrol, whatever. Highway Patrol. The bad guy's got your gun and runs,
Yes.
and then you decide to chase him. I bet briefly. Didn't chase him very far. Tactically sound?
No.
You don't. When you were a cop and somebody took your gun, you didn't run after him.
Nobody took my
to see
gun,
if your gun
and if
worked.
they did, I would not pursue them if I was unarmed, and that would be that. I'd rather lose my gun and keep my life than lose my gun and lose my life.
Yeah, this was. I was just amazed when the story said that. He just chased him out the door and saw the guy running across the parking lot, and he stopped outside. But why would you even?
You know, how old was
Don't do that.
How old was it? 21?
The guy's
22.
20.
It's inexperience. It's youthful, adrenaline filled, stupid.
Often when you chase bad guys, you see this on the cop shows all the time. It's just real life. When you're chasing somebody and they run around a corner, the cop stops at the corner and peeks with a mirror or at an odd angle or something, because sometimes the guy's waiting right outside the door.
Right.
Watch more cop shows on TV and you won't do this.
I have
Don't,
lots of questions about that.
when you lose your gun, don't chase the guy being unarmed. And I'm sure this guy, this 22-year-old, has been told that by lots of other people.
Maybe he'll make it to 23.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, his friends are probably all like, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And even with that being said, maybe he did practice. Maybe he has, you know, done some training. But sometimes the way you think you're going to react, you don't. So that's why you have to keep training and training and training so that it's not something that is foreign to you when it does happen.
When you have the real attack, you may well do something you don't expect you're going to do. We've got another story about that here later on. There's I just put together a whole bunch of them about gunfights, what really happens, and so forth. This is from the Star Beacon in Akron, Ohio, also carried by Ohio.com, and I kind of put their stories together. A man was shot after an argument at a local Valero gas station early Sunday morning. Police said report of a 25-year-old suspect and the victim, a man in his 20s, got into an argument at the gas pumps around 1:30 a.m. That's early in the morning. So these two guys are yelling at each other and kind of having a pushy-shovey fight. The business owner and the clerk in the gas station store went out to break up the fight. As they approached, the suspect grabbed a firearm from the store clerk's waist and shot the guy he was fighting with. This is not a good scenario. You go to break up a fist fight and have your gun sticking out and the guy grabs it and shoots the guy he's fighting with. Really not good for the guy he's fighting with. You know, you brought a gun to the guy who's trying to beat you up.
Horrifying.
Anyway, the victim was hit in the left arm and left side of his stomach. The shooter then got in a car and drove away. Witness reported the license plate number of the vehicle. Police quickly arrested the suspect at his home. He went home. He faces a felonious assault charge scheduled for arraignment in the municipal court on Monday morning. The victim's injuries were reported as non-life-threatening, and there was no details at all in the story about why the two guys were fighting or what they were fighting about, which is not matter anyway for our purposes.
Mm-hmm.
You go to break up a fight like the Good Samaritan, but you're carrying your gun in front apparently, and the guy just reaches and grabs your gun.
Well, I will tell you this: I'm going to represent the shooting victim. I'm going to sue Valero, the manager, and the fellow who was carrying the gun.
Of course.
and that's that. And I will win that one.
I think you will. I have in my notes when I was doing this that turning an argument into a shooting by providing the gun to one of the people in the fight isn't helpful. And it seemed to me clearly there's a lawsuit from the guy who got shot for the gas station employees arming a guy
Right.
who's beating up one of their customers or trying to beat up one of their
Well,
customers.
yeah, that clerk definitely shouldn't have shown up to that situation with a firearm. I mean, 2 arms length is one thing, but to get in the scuffle of it and then have his firearm taken
How
from him,
about stopping 10 feet back
yeah,
and seeing what's going on
That's a good
and
idea.
letting the unarmed guy go in and break it? I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can
Right.
do here. And I don't want to, again, we don't have the whole situation, but this same exact story pulled actually from 3 different sources. That's pretty close to what the guy did. He had his gun loosely carried apparently in a holster inside the pants with the gun belt hanging out on the front in what we call a kidney carry.
Mm-hmm.
The guy just went, wow. Took the gun.
Yeah.
Reminder, the gun store offers free concealed carry permit classes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. You can find our classes on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. You can sign up online. We always save spaces for walk-ins if you just show up about 15 minutes before the class starts. We'll virtually always get you in class. We can stuff more chairs in there, and we can hold about 50 people in the classroom, so we'll get there. Now we're at a interesting story. This is 2 stories here. First, there's the original story. This was the 7th of August in Akron, Ohio. The suspect of an Akron home invasion is dead after shooting Friday afternoon. Akron police said the man shot the suspect. We have 2 scenes. We have a scene at the home where the robbery took place and approximately 2 houses away where the robbery suspect fell and died. There are 3 people in the house at the time, according to the shooter. Police arrested a former Summit County Sheriff's deputy who showed up at the second scene. This is where they found the body. The second home invasion suspect is still on the run. Police do not know if the suspects in this case were armed. The house where this happened had another home invasion in 2012. Sounds okay. That's all there was in the first report. 10 days later, the same news media, Fox 8 in Cleveland, reported the Akron police have charged the Akron man, the former sheriff's deputy, with voluntary manslaughter after he allegedly shot and killed a home invasion suspect earlier this month, which we know from the first story, he did that. According to the release from the Akron police, the shooter, who's 21 years old and already an ex-sheriff's deputy, I wonder how you do that. You probably don't get to be a deputy very long.
No.
Anyway, was arraigned Monday and booked into Summit County Jail. He's accused of shooting and killing a 25-year-old burglary suspect on August 7th. A second burglary suspect, age 37, who police say was with the first suspect, has also been arrested. He faces charges of aggravated burglary and murder. Police now put together the 25-year-old and the 37-year-old suspects entered the home. Shots were fired at the 2 as they were running away. The homeowner pulled a gun. They turned and ran, as bad guys commonly do. They're running away. The 21-year-old chased him. He caught the 25-year-old, shot him dead. Police say that his death was approximate cause of the 2 committing the aggravated burglary together. So, under the felony murder rule, the second burglar who got away is charged with murder,
Right.
because their actions in concert caused the death of his partner, who was shot by the homeowner.
Yes.
And the homeowner is charged now with voluntary manslaughter because of the pursuit. first one legal. He's fires at him. They run. He chases the guy 2 houses over. He's unarmed, shoots him. Voluntary manslaughter is lucky on that one, I think.
Oh, I think so, yes.
I think there really is a very good question as to the causation issues, where you have, on the one hand, the felony murder defendant and his attorney is going to be, arguing, very vigorously that the proximate cause of the death is the illegal conduct of the sheriff's deputy, the former sheriff's deputy, not, the alleged misconduct by the two in concert.
It's going to be a complicated
It ought to be an
case.
interesting case. But
And the guy who didn't shoot is charged with murder,
he's
versus the guy who did shoot is charged with voluntary manslaughter.
He's got to feel like the odd man out. He said, hey, I was just going along for the ride. Now I'm charged with murder. And this moron who shot my buddy is charged with manslaughter.
The other guy shot his buddy wrongly.
Correct.
Because he's charged with a crime.
Wow.
So I would suspect the first trial is going to have to go on the voluntary manslaughter and see if he's convicted.
Shakespeare stuff.
Yeah, this was just, I ran across the first one. I thought, well, okay, 2 guys and he shot at them and they ran away, no big deal. And one of them was killed, but okay. And then you get the second story, which is 10 days later. And now the police are totally turning around what they're saying happened.
Well, what?
And you got to wonder how the guy could be an ex-deputy at age 21.
Well, I think I understand why he's an ex-deputy. He chased a man and shot him. What sense does
He
it
has
make?
to have been a reserve or something. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a
Choose your
real,
friends wisely.
honest-to-God police officer who's actually done time on the street would not do that.
Well, I'm glad he was an ex-police officer.
He should not
would think.
fire at a guy who's running away from him when no weapon is visible.
And they didn't
Yeah.
even have liquor in his hand, for God's sakes. What even?
Yeah, he didn't even have the 2 bottles of liquor.
Right,
The
right.
other guy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't shoot somebody when they're running away.
That's why you always want to keep
This isn't Texas. Now,
wanna
if this
keep
was
a-
Texas, he'd be okay.
a flask in your jacket and put it in your hand.
Yeah.
A throwaway flask.
Yeah.
That's the old days in Kansas. Yeah, I heard, yeah.
That's when you switch hats of being the victim to the aggressor.
There you go.
Okay, we're gonna move right along. There's a lot of fun stuff in this. This story, I got to tell you guys, I condensed into a readable page. It's about 4 pages long.
Yeah.
This is such a convoluted case, but run, get your soda out of the refrigerator and put us on pause and then come back. This is complicated. This is KSL TV 5 in Salt Lake City. It reported on the 19th, a couple days ago, in Vernal, Utah. Prosecutors say a woman who killed her boyfriend acted in self-defense. The victim was holding his girlfriend's cell phone. He's over at the house. He's holding her cell phone when a text message pops up from another guy, pops up on the screen. The woman said her boyfriend snapped, quote, and what began as an argument escalated into a violent attack. The woman said the victim, we're calling him, he's the one that got shot, threw her into a hallway wall, began to hit, kick, and choke her as she's laying on the floor. He then took the woman's phone and the children's phones and ordered the kids to go to a bedroom till he was done. Now, the 2 kids in the house are his kids. He has not been married to this woman, but they've been companions for a long, long time. There are 2 children that are old enough to be sent to the bedroom.
With
They
cell
didn't get
phones,
their age.
without cell phones.
Yeah, he took their cell phones so they couldn't call anybody. Took her cell phone, and he proceeded, according to the kids and the woman later, that he proceeded to beat her and whatever. It's a horrible, long story, kicking her and so forth and so on, until she lost consciousness. Then he would wake her up and beat her again until she lost consciousness. He dragged her into the master bedroom, pulled out his gun, put it on the bed, and told her, the quote, the only way she would get out of this night alive is if she shot him. Otherwise, he was going to kill her. Guess what? She picked up his gun and shot him. Tra-la. Uh,
Wow. Issues.
Never tell a woman you're beating that you're going to shoot or kill her later and leave your gun where she can pick it up. That's anyway. She shot him with his gun. Immediately after the shooting, she retrieved one of the children's cell phone and called 911. The sheriff's deputies reached the home that night. They found the victim's girlfriend, the shooter woman, and his two children and her two children, same two, standing outside. The 34-year-old man was unconscious but still alive on the floor of the master bedroom with a through-and-through gunshot wound to the chest. He was transported to Ashley Regional Medical Center where he's pronounced dead. The woman was treated at the hospital for bruises found on the woman's eyes, cheeks, ears, neck, head, shoulders, arms, torso, back, buttocks, legs, and feet. There's a much longer story about how badly she was beaten. She was beaten badly.
I don't think you missed a spot.
The prosecutor said his office had made a thorough review of the case, and as a result of that review, his office is of the opinion that the woman's actions constituted justifiable self-defense under the circumstances as they existed on the night of July 29, 2014, which is when this actually happened. Now, this story was this year because this just got adjudicated. That he just said this was their review.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not, this is a complicated thing, so I want to make clear we understand. The two children in the home were the guy's children. The couple had an ongoing relationship. Apparently, mom had another ongoing relationship because the cell phone that he picked up was a reference from the guy on the phone to her about how much fun they had the previous couple of days or whatever.
Right.
It was kind of like sexting. The victim, dead guy, has a long history of domestic violence against other women. He's had restraining orders and so forth and so on. He couldn't have a gun. He's done time for violating protective orders. Fortunately for the woman, who's not probably the nicest person in the world, but she certainly is actually the victim here. Fortunately for her, he brought a gun that she could use to defend herself with, because actually she couldn't have one either. She's got a felony record also.
So they're made for each other.
I thought they were the perfect couple.
That's what I'm looking at here.
They,
Yeah.
This is Vernal, Utah. It's a nice town. Does this happen in Utah? You don't know. You're in Kansas.
It happens. I mean, it looks to me like she was well within her right to defend herself. This is a big case of domestic violence, and, she was well within her right to shoot him. I think that he was just off kilter. He's already off kilter. He's already got a history of domestic violence. So, for the sake of her children, I think she did the right thing. What she did didn't deserve any of that. I mean, she could have laid herself out for the whole football team. It doesn't make it right for her to be beaten.
Like that. Yeah. And he said specifically, she's not going to leave alive.
Yeah.
And showed her the gun he was going to kill her with.
That's
apparently.
intent right there.
So,
well, that is an unambiguous threat to life. Unambiguous.
Yeah.
She had every right to defend herself.
If she'd had her own gun, wouldn't have gone that far. But, that's what we normally say on this, have a gun. And so you can defend yourself. In this case, she couldn't have a gun either.
Well, the real culprit in this whole situation is the phone. Forgive me. And people are always griping about guns. In this situation, it was the phone.
Phones kill people.
Phones kill people. That's right.
Create hostility.
Yeah.
It's the radiation.
I'm not sure I agree with you on that, Alan, but pretty defensible case. And if, we talked before about having pepper sprays and things like that, I don't think would have helped her a bit. This is truly a bad guy who's got a serious violent criminal history. He couldn't have a gun. So,
yeah.
And she had restraining orders against him, and other women had restraining orders. Several of them added another paragraph to this about what happened to them, which is interesting to look at after the fact, but it had nothing to do with her being attacked.
Both of them are ineligible, illegally possessing a firearm. Both of them prior convictions, felonies. what better mix to have a disaster?
It's going to be a disaster.
Honestly, it's the children that are going to suffer.
Oh,
And yeah, being there and watching this and hearing it and hearing the shot and hearing them scream at each other. And this had gone
It's
on
emotional.
lots of times. This was not the first rodeo where they'd argued.
Yeah.
He'd slapped her around
Sad.
before. She'd actually gotten a restraining order at one point,
Mhm.
and then went down to this was before, like, I don't know if they don't have the law, but we have in Nevada that when you file a restraining order, you can't withdraw it, that the government is charging the guy or the
Yeah.
aggressor.
Yeah.
And she went and withdrew it, said she wouldn't testify or refused to testify against him because she really loved him, and he just was moody. And I mean, you read, there's about a paragraph on that too.
Yeah.
This is KSL TV. It's K Salt Lake, TV5 in Salt Lake, Vernal, Utah on 8/19. You can look it up on the internet. There's a long thing. Great example of why domestic violence is the crime that it is. And people have a right, women have a right to defend themselves.
Well, men and women have a right to defend themselves, and domestic violence goes both ways for men and women. And so, these cases, oftentimes, like you said, she didn't want to press any charges, but because she loved him, and sometimes I'm sure you'll agree, it happens all the time. Oh no, he beat me up, but I don't want to press any charges.
That's why we changed the law so the woman cannot withdraw, or the
Exactly.
victim rather,
Right,
cannot
right.
withdraw the charges.
Right.
But she can refuse to testify, and the
Happens
city
all the
county
time.
is
Happens
stuck.
all the time, yeah.
Prosecutor really, these are normally one-on-ones, and if there's no other witnesses, the prosecutor can't make his case.
Right.
So, does it apply that a woman cannot be required to testify against her husband, even if it's a criminal case like that, where she's the victim?
She can be subpoenaed. She could be made a material witness. She can be ordered into court under powers of contempt, but nobody can put the words in her mouth. I mean, if she gets up on the stand and says, I was mistaken and nothing happened, then, I made a big deal out of it because I was angry.
And actually, I fell down the stairs, and that's
You
how
bet. I mean,
I got the knife in my back. I fell on a knife.
The problem for the unwilling participant victim is not so much whether or not what it is they're going to have to say, it's whether they show up or not. And to what extent the district attorney or the prosecuting agency is going to force their hand.
You were a prosecutor in your career. Did you ever run into that, where you had a witness who did not want to testify?
Oh, yes. But I also run into it quite often where I'll find myself representing a man charged with domestic violence, and gosh, I would say 90% of the time, the victim, whether wife, girlfriend, or otherwise, comes into the office with him, wants to sit down, maybe even pays the attorney's fees or a portion of them, and they don't want to participate. It puts me in a difficult situation because, I can't be giving her advice, well, don't testify, don't do this, don't cooperate.
Right.
It's a very difficult thing, but it's the vast majority of the victims are going to be sympathetic to the defendants.
Yeah, they are. And I'm sure, you could get somebody on the show one time to talk about it, but this is a common thread. When I was acting as a bailiff, saw lots of this, and the woman is financially obligated to the guy. She has no place to go. And there are lots of programs in Southern Nevada. Call 311 and get out of the relationship.
Definitely.
There are places you can go that can hide you and help you relocate.
One would be Safe Nest.
You stay around, and when he says, I'll never do that again, he's probably lying. So one more story, and then we're going to have a guest come on for a minute, and I've got we're going to get into some political laws coming up and things. This is a story reported by Bob Irwin this week on the 20th. Lots of people watch the show, and I received a call from a nice woman, age 70, describes herself as a regular listener with a story. She was out to lunch with another lady friend of hers who is 77 when the 77-year-old's cell phone went off. And it was the older woman's home security provider that has a ring through on her phone that said a motion sensor indicated there was a possible intruder in her kitchen. Well, the 77-year-old woman lives alone, so the company said they had dispatched their armed guard, and he was on his way. So the two women drove over to her house, found the guard had not arrived yet. So guess what? They decided to enter the house and look to see if there really was an intruder in the kitchen. It turns out there was, the older woman knew that they had a short in the system someplace, and every month or two she'd get a false alarm from this motion sensor in the kitchen. And, probably there was nobody in there. So these two ladies searched the house. Neither of them have any weapons that they told me about. A bit later, the guard arrived. He searched again, also found nothing. The kitchen alarm did have a lot of false reading. So why would the women not wait for the guard?
Sounds to me like a false sense of security.
Why would they? They're out to lunch. They're not going anywhere, late for work, this or that. They arrive. There's a guy working on a car down the street. They didn't seem upset. They could have been the lookouts for the guy in the house. Tra-la. Anyway, I don't know what these ladies planned to do if they found the guy in the kitchen, other than get beaten, raped, or murdered.
Victims.
Wait for the armed guard who's on the way. If he doesn't show up, call the police. It's going to be a low priority call. 95% of home internal alarms are false alarms. That's why the police normally won't respond unless a human verifies a broken window or something. If the guard arrived and found a door jimmied, he would have called the police to help search the house rather than go in by himself with his gun. He's anyone I trained anyway. Police will respond when there's a second opinion, there's some physical evidence. But there's no reason in the world to enter a house that there may be a bad guy in. Why? Well, we didn't think anything was going to happen. So 95% of the time, you're absolutely right. And the other 5%, you're dead. So don't do that. Call the police. Call your uncle who lives across town. Tell him to come over with his baseball bat if the police won't come. But the police will come. It may take them an hour. It's a very low priority call, but they will get somebody there.
They're definitely the authority, and they are the ones who should probably handle the situation. Like you said, they weren't armed. Nothing, anything like that. Even if they were, I would say don't go in. Let the authorities handle it.
Even there, yeah. A 70 and 77-year-old lady with their stubby 38 or whatever are going to do against a hardened criminal, they're going to lose. They're not, even if they have permits and they're trained, they're not physically capable of fighting with somebody that age. Even two of them. I'm sorry, they're going to lose.
I don't know.
You're tougher than most. Unless you've taken training from Maggie, then
you're okay.
Go get them.
Where there's a will, there's a way. There's some great training you can get. But in this situation, I would never advise anybody to go in the house, even if they are armed and they know that the house's alarms are going off. Again, let the authorities do their job. If you're afraid to go in your home, or like you said, if you have other family members who may be able to go in the home with you, but still, my advice, me personally, even if it was my house, I'm very well trained. Even if it was my house that was broken into, I'm not even going to go in the house. I'm going to call the police and let them handle it.
What do the police do? If they're driving down the road and they see a door open of a house and the alarm's ringing, a single officer. What does he do? Call the police. That's what
You
you
know,
do.
what she should have done was order dessert. That's all.
There you go.
When I was in training and when I was a cop, that was one of the questions on the test was, you know, you're in plain clothes, but you got your gun. You go walking by a storefront and you look in and you see what appears to be an armed robbery in progress. What do you do? And the answer is call the police.
Call the police.
Duh. You know, get help there.
Yeah,
That just
yeah.
no reason in the world to risk your life. The police will show up. You're paying them through your taxes, about to pay them through even more
You know,
taxes.
if you just think about it, even every time a police officer makes a car stop, what do you do first? You call it in.
Yeah,
You're
call
calling
the
the
police. I'm here.
I'm getting out
And-
of my car. Here's the license number. It's an occupant, blue Chevy, blah, blah, blah. I'm at this address.
This
You've
is the
called the
plate.
police.
I'm here, and yeah.
Yeah.
Fundamental.
So if you go, somebody's on the way.
That's right.
It's I'm gonna bring your newly adopted son,
Mark, come
Mark.
join us.
Hey, Mark.
If you allow me, I will move out. Mark can move in.
We're gonna put him on American internet television. This is Mark,
Hi.
who is Alan's newly adopted son,
Mm-hmm.
here from Russia.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. You're
I'm
in-
from Russia.
Yeah.
From
Grade are you in?
Siberia.
What grade?
7th.
7th grade. And now you're starting school here,
Yes.
and you learn to speak English
Yes.
in here or in Russia?
Here and Russia.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
you have a Russian accent underneath there.
Yes.
I like his Russian accent. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, when you send your question or comment in, if you're a 15-year-old girl and you send a note to bob@firedupmail.com, we will send it over to Mark, okay? So you can find a cute American girlfriend while you're.
Oh.
But now you've moved here, you're gonna live here.
Yeah.
And what are you gonna do for a living? Do you know yet? What do you want to do when you grow up?
I will work. I will find a wife.
Yeah. You don't have to look for a wife yet. You can play the field for a year or two.
So,
Become a lawyer like your stepdad.
so what kind of trade would you like to get into? So I have my interpreter here. It's on my phone. So this is my question. So what kind of work would you like to do one day to make money? Oh, what kind of work would you like to do
I
one day to
understand.
make money? Okay.
I will go to police. Just.
You want to be a police officer?
Yes. I want to be like my dad.
Oh, wonderful.
Mhm.
Oh, that's amazing. And what other kind of hobbies do you have? What
I
kind of
like music. I play on guitar.
nice.
Mhm.
You play the guitar.
Yes.
That is
Classic
awesome.
guitar.
Classic guitar. Ooh, I love that. That is amazing. What is do you do any type of sports?
I ski.
You ski?
Yes, I ski already 5 years. So 5
Oh,
years.
wow. I love to ski. Skiing is awesome.
Yeah, his mother is a concert pianist.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing.
big
That's
music
amazing.
is-
I heard that you like to do martial arts. You do martial arts, the karate or anything like
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Mhm.
What type of martial arts?
Like wrestling.
Russian martial arts?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. Well, it seems to me that you are a very well-rounded young man,
Mhm.
and that we are very lucky and very fortunate to have you here. And I think that you will make our country very rich with
Mhm.
the person that you are. So thank you for coming.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on the show.
Mhm.
We'll see if any young ladies send you a note.
Mm-hmm.
Is it До свидания?
All right.
Spasiba.
He is an amazing young man.
He really is.
amazing.
He really is. He's a top drawer kind of guy.
He's
Very
he's a gem.
We have a couple of gun law things going on here. We got about a half an hour left of show. So the Associated Press had a report this month out of Boise, Idaho. A group of residents in northern Idaho lined up outside a Navy veteran's house to protest claims that the federal officials are planning to confiscate the man's firearms. We've discussed on this show a Veterans Administration program that exists to, what exactly is going on, it depends on who you read. The Veterans Affairs Department has a policy. They say that a veteran who is not capable of handling his own finances shouldn't have firearms because that shows he's not mentally up to speed. The sheriff of Bonner County, a guy named Darrell Wheeler, was one of the protesters. He said to the press there, "I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the laws of Idaho. It seems it would be appropriate for him to show support." The Veterans Affairs letter to this gentleman last name is Arnold, confirmed that the VA's office benefit department in Salt Lake City can bar veterans, they said in the letter, from purchasing guns if they are declared incompetent. What they're doing, though, is not just that. They are prohibiting possession of guns by putting the individual on a list they send to the local law enforcement. The VA said they don't go out and pick up guns. I'll accept that's true. They simply send a letter to the guy and to the local law enforcement saying, we have declared this individual to be incompetent because he has a fiduciary appointed to manage his finances. And that reason is that the reasoning there is then the person should not possess a firearm. The VA did respond to this a little bit and said the agency has no ability to confiscate weapons. They don't send out VA police. They just notify local law enforcement of their findings. And this has been going on for some time. We've had, when we're taking live calls, we've had several calls about this from elderly veterans who said, you know, the guy, they came and took my guns, but it wasn't the VA that comes and takes his guns. It's because the VA reports that by their definition, the guy has been adjudicated mentally incompetent. Mm-hmm. The VA means adjudicated is not what we think it means, that you went to court and a judge said you're incompetent. It means by their rules, mm-hmm. their administrators looked at it and said the guy's incompetent, and they call that adjudicated. Why this is becoming more crucial, this is as bad as it can get, but it isn't, folks. Last month, we reported a story in the LA Times that indicated the Obama White House is eyeing ways to use Social Security as a resource of records for NICS system, which will include a federal database of persons prohibited from possessing or receiving firearms. The story in the LA Times, this is not the right-wing journal of the week, this is the LA Times, reported that the VA is using, or the Social Security Administration will use the VA's model, which reports to NICS and as adjudicated as mental defective beneficiaries who have been assigned a fiduciary to manage their benefits. Mm-hmm. So if right now what's happening with the VA, if you have, they assign you a guy to help you with finances, that by their rules declares you incompetent, and the Social Security Administration is looking at doing the same thing using the VA's rules. The VA, it's resulted in 177,000 VA beneficiaries being reported as prohibited persons to the NICS system without any judicial finding as to their propensity to be dangerous or be violent. According to the LA Times, a similar move by Social Security would have far broader reach, involving as many as 4.2 million beneficiaries who have representative payees, meaning you send your Social Security check to somebody else who pays your bills for you, then the VA considers that in their system, they adjudicate you to be mentally incompetent by their clerks deciding that you need financial assistance to manage your affairs.
Mhm.
But this will be a lot more people if they get into Social Security. They're guesstimating there's about 4.2 million people who have a VA appointed person helping with their financial affairs. Therefore, they're trying to apply the same rule. Are you on Social Security? Are you having somebody help you with your financial affairs? You don't have to be violent. You don't have to be suffering dementia. You just have to be crappy at the math. I'm on Social Security and I have somebody do my income tax returns. It's been nice running the show, folks. I'm going to be a no-gun guy if this goes through. This is only a proposal. This is really, really scary. You can call and yell at the Social Security Administration. I really don't think it'll do any good, but we have a fan on that side of the podium here to keep us all cool.
It's magic.
You know, the experiences that I've had with administrative decisions made by not so much the Veterans Administration, but to some extent the Veterans Administration, more to the point Social Security. When there is a determination of rights made administratively, you are normally given an opportunity to have that reviewed, challenge, appeal, whatever you want to call it, within a certain amount of time. I'm not familiar enough with either the VA or the Social Security's policies or their procedures as may be already implemented, particularly by the VA. I'd be surprised if there isn't that type of review. If there isn't, it is really scary. If there isn't, because
In the VA, right now, it's limited to people who are living in VA-supported homes.
right,
If they're living in a VA,
would that be a federal facility?
yeah, or it's paid for by the feds. So the feds own not just VA hospitals, but the motels they convert for
Sure.
veterans and things,
Right,
where it's VA-assisted housing,
arguably
and you're in that.
federal
Yeah.
reservation in a
They're
sense.
supporting you, and you need a guy to help do your whatever math to pay your rent or whatever.
Well, one may well expect that having a firearm under those circumstances may be difficult anyway.
It may be because it's federal property. There have been a few cases of that, and this is the one that's going on in Idaho. Is this
Right.
guy is in a veterans supported facility, and they sent him a letter to turn in his guns
I think I'd get my suitcase.
and get out. Well, if you can, it's like the battered woman. You're there. You are. You have no money. You live on your VA benefits, and you have no place to go and no family or whatever. You either move in with your children, which you don't want to do, or you turn in your guns. I mean, every case is going to be individually different. Just so you're aware, the Social Security Administration is looking at this.
I think the NRA needs to get involved with old folks' homes. What do you think?
They are. I told you earlier we're going to cover a little thing about gun-free zones. This is a Breitbart report from yesterday. In reaction to firearms-related attacks at gun-free theaters in Aurora, Colorado, and Lafayette, Louisiana, Regal Entertainment Group, Regal Theaters, has gone from simply barring law-abiding citizens from carrying guns for self-defense into checking their purses to be sure they are unarmed. Regal Theaters have come out with a statement that backpacks and bags of any kind will be subject to searches for theater goers' safety. In March 2013, the theater chain sent an email to a gun rights website, confirming the banning of guns for self-defense applied to any citizen other than law enforcement. And apparently from the scuttlebutt beyond that, it includes retired cops and so forth. It's only active, currently certified law enforcement officers are off duty, but they're allowed to carry their guns inside Regal theaters. There's a Regal theater in several of them in town here.
There is, yeah.
And someone who looks very much like me and his bride, a couple of weeks ago, where my wife's bag got searched going into a theater by security. And I had no idea, maybe they had a threat, but they didn't. That was just, and the guy looked and missed a 38 snub nose. Sorry, honey, I didn't want to tell everybody you carry a gun, but they didn't even look at me because us old guys were never dangerous anyway. Nice little old guy. Yeah,
I think they're looking for milk duds and
that's what I think they're looking for.
Bottled water.
Yeah, because they don't want you bringing in food.
Bringing your own food.
Outside. Anyway,
Yeah. I don't know how that's even legal.
Well, I'm carrying.
private property. That's the question. Is that legal?
Well,
for
they'll
them
never
to
know.
search
Can
you?
they search my property on their property?
Nobody's gonna know I'm carrying until I need to save myself or someone else, and then it won't
That's
matter, will it?
Don't answer a different question, counselor.
Oh, I'm
Our
sorry.
question was:
Talking about 5
is
by
it
12 carried by 6?
legal?
Is it legal to carry?
Is it
Will we
legal
discuss
for
that?
them to
That was the
search?
very first thing. Oh, is it legal for them to search? Yes. They can. Well, they can politely say, "Well, I'd like to search you." You can politely say, "Well, no," and they can
No.
politely say, "Well, then please leave."
Please leave, yeah.
It's their property. Adios.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can say, "Hey, that's great because I got my streaming video." Oh,
Exactly.
But if you say I want to go to the theater and they wouldn't
Wait till
let
it
me,
comes
there's
out
no
on
lawsuit
DVD.
there. It's private
no,
property.
no, it's private property, so just suck it up and leave. People like
Now, if you say
Of
that
course, yeah.
to somebody because they're a certain race or religion, they can't go into the theater, you get sued. But if it's because I have a gun,
Because you're exercising your Second Amendment.
you have no choice.
no comment.
I'm trying to get you a case here.
Yeah. We're just talking about opinions, right?
This
Well,
will be
I
all the
think-
way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think that the gun right advocate is going to politely honor the request of a property owner and simply not go.
Yeah.
He is, and there is a lawsuit already from some gun rights groups. I'm looking at the law. I don't think it's going anywhere. Private property rights always seems to exceed Second Amendment rights.
Yeah.
The basic right we have is to act the way we want to act on our own property.
Sure.
Unless, of course, you don't want to bake a cake for a gay couple getting married, then you don't have a right not to do that. But that's another issue, not for this show.
Equally, we have a right to bear arms, and we have to respect those who choose the right not to bear or to
Exactly.
touch them.
So there's different theaters that are showing the same movie somewhere. And again, the advice we gave before, if that happens to you and they said, I won't let you in the theater unless I can search your purse, and you may have something in your purse you don't want them looking at that isn't a gun or anything else to do with guns, and you just go, no, leave me alone. Don't yell at the guy at the door. He's, making his $9 an hour, and it isn't his policy.
It's just
Go
the
after their
messenger.
website
Yeah.
with complaints, send
Mhm.
letters to the national chain and say, I'm going to this other company
Right.
instead. Make sure it isn't another company the same corporation owns, because then
Right,
they'll just
right.
laugh. But you hit them in the pocketbook by saying, I'm not going to participate in your business.
And I think people,
anymore."
organizations like Regal Theaters are going to find themselves dealing with a lot of situations where it blows up in their face because they probably won't do adequate training, probably won't vet their employees. They're going to go to search someone's bag, a woman who says, no, I don't want you to search my bag. Then the fight's on to search the bag, not search the bag. Husband gets involved. Then we've got a fray. Situations are going to be, it's going to be a big problem for the Regal Theaters. They're going to regret coming up with this solution to a problem that they shouldn't be butting into, in my opinion.
The criminals that went into theaters to shoot people wouldn't have been stopped by this anyway. They came in the
No.
back door.
Come
they
in the
did all
back
kinds of
door
things.
anyway,
Yeah.
as in a war. Yes,
Criminals don't come in peacefully, do they?
please.
But if there's a sign that says no guns allowed, they go somewhere else. You know, those signs stop terrorists right there, because if they read English,
Had we simply not had a sign on the Twin Towers, please do not fly.
no crashing
Airliner.
into our-
No-fly
Yes,
zone.
Yes,
Yeah,
no fly.
no fly zone. There you go.
Sheesh.
If you're watching the show on the night of the 22nd, Saturday, we are not here. We taped the show earlier. We're at Sunset Station at the NRA benefit dinner, where you should be.
Yes.
Instead. Gun show's coming up. We've got Crossroads of the West gun show at Cashman Field on the 28th and 29th. The gun store guys will be there. At least one of our attorneys will be there. Especially Saturday, I've got one locked in from noon to 2, and maybe another one that wants to go there. Take your newly found son to
There you
the
go.
gun show.
Smart.
And that gives you opportunity to ask questions that you don't want to write me an email about. I've got this Thompson my grandfather brought home from Vietnam. What do I do with it? It's in the back of my closet.
Mhm.
That you don't want to tell me about. Fine. You can talk to an attorney in confidence about what you can do about it and so forth and so on. The answer is turn it in, but you know, there's complexities and legal stuff there. Anyway, that's this next weekend, the 28th or 29th and 30th of August at Cashman. Then Rocky Mountain the week after at the South Point. We're going to be there too. That's September 5 and 6. And after that, there's one coming up later on at the Sports Center on Sunset. But the big ones are this next 2 weekends: Crossroads at Cashman and Rocky Mountain. Are you teaching CCW at one of those? Or
I
both,
am.
or-
I'm teaching CCW classes at the Rocky Mountain Gun Show. We are teaching them on Saturday and Sunday. You can either do it in one day or break it up in 2 days.
And the class is?
Oh, the class is $89 for a brand new CCW, and it's $65 for a renewal. A renewal is 4 hours. A brand new
Tell
CCW
me,
is 8
Alan,
hours.
I'm not good at math. That's why the Social Security wants to take my guns away. But the class at the gun store is free. Is that less money than my companion?
Yes, but you don't get to deal with
But
Maggie.
you
It's
don't
a
get
different
Maggie.
instructor. It's a
It's-
different instructor.
And she is honestly a lot cuter than any of our instructors.
Indubitably.
We
Gotta
have
tell you.
hands-on practicals as well.
That's a loaded
Leave that
statement
alone.
there.
Don't, not just,
Firearms.
Maggie
Teach how to use
is
a gun.
also teaches classes here on occasion for
I
women's
do.
self-defense and so on, and she is a excellent instructor.
Every second
So I
Thursday of the
would
month, we have a
encourage
ladies
you to
class.
do that.
We do have a ladies class here every second Thursday of the month. It's awesome. It's $75. Get a lot of hands-on practicals. Learn how to use a firearm. With the $75, it includes the ammunition and the firearm. And you guys provide actually eye and ear protection and targets and everything. We get on the range and create your new normal. If you're a new shooter, if you're an experienced shooter getting back into it, hey, you know what? We're going to kind of dial you in and get you back on the range.
And that is a great deal.
Yeah,
What a
it-
bargain,
it's a-
honestly.
Yeah.
It really is a great class, and it's a
It is.
ladies only class. No, your husband cannot sit in the back of the room.
Can I dress and drag and come to?
I'd
should
pay
have a
money to
men's
see it.
class.
I'd pay
We
money
should
to
have
see
a men's class.
it, so we can all complain about girlfriends and wives. Obviously, ladies, there are questions you want to ask in class that you don't want to ask with your boyfriend or some other guy you don't know sitting there.
Yeah.
And so we don't allow men in the class, and that's it. You know, they can wait out front or wait in the car or drive down to the bar. But the ladies' class is the ladies' class only, which makes it a lot more comfortable.
It's awesome.
to
We have a
do.
great
And
time.
She is just
We do.
a dynamite teacher.
Thank
I
you.
haven't been able to go in there and watch the class, but
Thank you.
I understand that. So, this is our extra story that we put on the internet. This is going to just take a couple minutes, but this was brought to my attention by Alan Gottlieb of the Citizens Committee to Right to Keep and Bear Arms up in Washington State. A congressional Democrat named Carolyn Maloney from New York has introduced into Congress for real a bill. It's called H.R. 2546. She introduced it on May 21st. requires all gun owners in the United States to purchase $10,000 worth of what is described in the bill as appropriate liability insurance. The bill provides if gun owners do not comply, like you can't buy the insurance in your state for some reason, because most insurance companies are limited to states, and that you can't get one that'll write the policy for you, the automatic is you pay a fine of $10,000 or turn in your firearms. This is in the bill in Congress. Clearly, a bill like this could not pass Congress at the moment. This is why it is so important, if you are listening to this show, that you are a voter. And I'm getting to the point with CCW class. I'm going to make everybody show their voter registration, or I'm going to kick them out. Because if you believe in the right to self-defense or want to have a gun for self-defense, you need to vote. This is how we fix this crap. Anyway, HR 2546 as proposed. The wording is I pulled the whole thing in my outline. To prohibit the sale of firearms to or purchase of a firearm by any person not covered by appropriate liability insurance. As enacted by the House of Representatives, it's called the Firearm Risk Protection Act of 2015. And it goes on in legalese, but it says no person shall purchase a firearm unless at the time of purchase the purchaser presents to the seller, this is everybody, not just to gun stores, proof that the purchaser is covered by qualified liability insurance. And the seller must verify the purchaser is covered by the insurance policy, or that's a crime, so and so on. Anywhere in the United States or any subdivision thereof, all the legal stuff about that. The term qualified insurance policy means with respect to the purchase of a firearm that the policy will provide insurance covering the purchaser specifically for losses resulting from use of the firearm while it is owned by the purchaser and is issued by an insurer licensed and authorized to provide the coverage in the state which is in, and so forth. And anyway, this is going to be part of the gun law statutes 922. Shall be fined if you don't have it, insurance, and you have a gun, you get fined not more than $10,000. And this becomes effective 180 days after it is passed by Congress and signed into law. And away we go. So you cannot, if this goes through, cannot own a gun unless you buy insurance. Now, we all realize there is a precedent for this already, because we have a law currently that everybody's yelling about that you must buy health insurance.
Yeah.
Well, you have a right to bear arms, and I think that's the difference between health insurance. Example, and you know what, just as a comment, I don't think we need to blame anti-gun persons. And this is clearly a result of the insurance lobby, incredibly powerful interest group that has the ability to influence our Congress. And so there you go.
They are. And, I don't honestly give this,
money.
I don't honestly give this a ghost of a chance of passing Congress as we have it. If it passed, certainly our fearless leader, our president, would sign it. Or if our fearless leader becomes the lady, what's her name? I don't even.
That's not going to happen.
But
No.
this kind of thing, and I didn't bring it up to scare you because I don't think it's very likely to pass. And it's certainly not likely to pass a constitutional test with the Supreme Court, even our left-leaning Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Although they could look at that and say, we've argued this under Obamacare where you're required to get health insurance.
The reason this is so important, if you don't mind me saying,
That's
so
why you're here.
people like all of our people listening, watching, will join the NRA and support the folks that do protect us from this silliness.
Yeah, we will, as is our normal, as we get toward the election time here in Nevada, we will run on our webpage, firedupwithbobiRwin.com, a list of the people running that we support, or the Nevada Firearms Coalition supports, the pro-gun people. That is certainly not the only reason to vote for somebody or against somebody. But if we lose our guns, everything else is gone. So the First Amendment's only enforced because of the Second Amendment and so forth and so on. I don't want to get all political on this thing, but we are. This is really important that you vote, and maybe I can get other firearms instructors to do the same thing. If you don't show your voter stub, you can't take CCW class. You know? I'm just.
I don't know. If
We don't
that
have
would be
to
good for
ask them.
business.
Well, it wouldn't be good for business, so you know, and it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't really good for business for me to be doing classes for free either. But the idea is, you know, it's a right we got to protect. Anyway, that's my rant for tonight. We are going to be back next week at our same regular time, 6 to 7. We'll be back on KDVN Radio. My guest next week, wow, will be an all-lady panel except for me. We're having Maggie back again.
And Andy.
And Andy Lewin, who is a wonderful lady attorney who is now in civilian practice, but she is predominantly just does murder cases and that sort of thing. Very bright young lady.
She's awesome.
Alan, in all good respect, she's a lot cuter than you, too.
Well, by golly, I hope she is.
So
Wait till you see me in drag, though, before you make your final decision.
this is live all over the world.
I'm joking.
I
I'm
gotta get in
joking.
drag, I'd lose the beard. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to Fired Up. We will be back next week again on YouTube and our radio show on KDWN on Saturday nights. Thanks for watching us, and go out and vote.
Speak on an
Thank you.
Archie.